You've probably heard the name Methuselah, right? It's basically shorthand for being incredibly old. But what if I told you his story wasn't really about the number? What if his entire life was actually a secret, a countdown, hidden in plain sight for almost 1,000 years?
So let's get right to it. Here's the mystery that just hooks you in. The oldest man who ever lived dies in the exact same year as the Great Flood. I mean, what are the odds? Is that just a wild coincidence? Or is there something much, much bigger going on here?
Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. 969 years. That's not just a long life. That's almost an entire millennium. It's a span of time that's honestly kind of hard for us to even imagine today. And look, this wasn't like, oh, it was sometime around then. The records are really specific about this. The year he died was the year the flood began. You have these two absolutely monumental events, completely locked together in time. Okay, so who exactly was this guy? Who was this man who was tasked with living through an entire era of human history? Well, to understand the end of his life, we've got to go back and look at its pretty extraordinary beginning. Methuselah's family tree is just wow. It reads like a who's who of the ancient world. He's the son of the prophet Enoch. He was even said to have been ordained to the priesthood by Adam himself when he was 100. I mean, he didn't just read about these figures in a book, he literally walked and talked with them. And then something incredible happens. His father, Enoch, and the entire city of Zion were translated, which means they were taken straight up from the earth without ever dying. But Methuselah, he stayed behind. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why was he the one left? Well, it turns out he had a mission. This was no accident. He was actually the most essential link in a chain of destiny. He had to remain on Earth to preserve the sacred lineage that would lead directly to his great-grandson, a guy you've definitely heard of, Noah. And this is where the story gets really good. This is where it goes from just being a cool history lesson to a mind-blowing prophecy. The entire secret to his long life, it was right there from the day he was born. Yup, you heard that right. His whole life was basically a ticking clock. And the final alarm, the grand finale, was baked right into the name his parents gave him all those centuries ago. Because the name Methuselah, when you translate it, literally means, at his death, the sending forth of waters. So think about that. His life wasn't just long. It was a living, breathing, 969-year-long prophecy of the Great Flood. Wow. But even though he had this divine purpose, he was still, a man. He had this massive mission, but he wasn't perfect. He had his own weaknesses. Even with the entire weight of the future resting on his shoulders, he wasn't immune to a very, very human flaw. His weakness? It was pride. He was apparently super impressed by the fact that through his great-grandson Noah, he was going to be the ancestor of all future kingdoms on Earth. And according to the text, he wasn't shy about it. He kind of boasted about it. And, his life wasn't just some long, peaceful wait for the end. He lived through some incredible turmoil, including the first recorded famine in history, an event so bad that huge numbers of people died. So, yeah, his world was anything but peaceful. And so his life became this long and, I have to imagine, pretty lonely vigil. As the centuries just rolled by, Methuselah had to watch as literally everyone he had ever known passed away. He just outlived them all. He was already 453 years old when Enos died. He was 735 when his own grandfather, Jared, passed away. He watched an entire generation of patriarchs fade into history while he was the only one left. And maybe the most heartbreaking part of all of this, he even outlived his own son. Lamech, who was Noah's father, died 5 years before Methuselah did. Can you just imagine the loneliness of that? Being the last one standing from your entire world? And then, in that one fateful year, 2344 BC, the prophecy came true. At 969 years old, the clock finally ran out. Methuselah died. And just as his name had foretold for nearly 1,000 years, the waters were sent forth. It really leaves you with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? Methuselah's legacy wasn't just about how long he lived.
It was about his purpose. His whole life was a final, patient warning to the world. So it kind of makes you wonder, if one single life can be a prophecy, what does that say about the legacy that each one of us is building right now?